There are so many things that disturb our peace or rob it from us. That's why we tend to describe peace in terms of what must be absent in order for it to be present. We talk about how we have peace when our country is not at war, when there are no protests in the streets, no fighting in our home, no fear in our hearts, and no noisy neighbors next door. What happened to the state of shalom, the state of peace that marked God's perfect world when He first created it? That state of shalom was shattered by sin. God created a world that was permeated by peace. He placed Adam and Eve in this paradise, and God commanded the first human couple that they could eat fruit from any of the many trees, except the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. As long as they submitted to God's will, they would enjoy shalom. But Satan tempted them. They knowingly disobeyed and committed sin. To defy God is to declare war, which brings the exact opposite of peace. Refusal to submit to God's command resulted in the poison of sin being injected into God's perfect world. This resulted in a rift in their relationship with God. Instead of walking and talking with God and enjoying His presence, they experienced feelings of fear as they fled from the presence of God. And they experienced futility for the first time as they tried to flee from the all-seeing and all-knowing God who had no trouble finding them. Their sin also ruined their relationship with each other. Disharmony began as Adam blamed his wife, and disharmony continued to play out as their son Cain grew jealous of his brother Abel, resulting in Abel's death by means of cold-blooded murder by brother Cain. From this point on, we had a world in which we needed police and soldiers and lawyers and judges. Adam and Eve's sense or view of themselves was also ruined. With their failure to submit to God, their internal sense of peace in their heart was pushed out as feelings of guilt and shame moved in. Their relationship with creation was also broken. As a consequence of Adam and Eve's disobedience to God, creation itself was placed under a curse. Disease afflicted plants, animals, and people alike, and now we needed doctors and veterinarians. Natural disasters caused immense damage and destruction. Difficulties would rob work of its pleasure. Thorns and thistles would grow in their gardens, and work would involve struggle and sweat and strained relationships. Devils and demons, or shaitan and jinn, would spread false teachings and harm people and cause seizures and shrieking and foaming at the mouth and cutting of the flesh and falling into fires. Death also invaded a world that knew only life. Not only would animals die due to disease or aging, they would even eat each other. And people would die too. Death is the destruction of shalom. But death is not the end. Physical death is not the end. It is the doorway to eternal death, which the Bible calls hell. The Hebrew word for hell is Sheol, and just as heaven is the opposite of hell, so Sheol is the opposite of shalom. The Bible tells us that everyone who disobeys God, even once, is destined for hell. That means hell is the destiny of every one of us. Unless there is some way of escape, someone who can rescue us and restore us to a state of shalom. We've seen that the state of shalom was shattered by Adam and Eve's sin as they chose to not submit to God's command. And everyone who doesn't submit to all of God's commands all the time is destined for Sheol or hell. The good news is there is someone powerful enough to restore us to a state of shalom.